5 years ago to today's date, we were here for round number 1 of RPL F2 back in Bahrain for the first ever time. 5 years later, here today, we are here for round number 5 of the 20th F2 season in RPL. It is time for Imola. 13 laps for the sprint, 18 laps for the feature. But nonetheless, last season, we had the same thing happen, just maybe a different thing in the events. We had punctures, we had a wet race, we had so much chaos that we could talk about for days in and days out. We had a first 10 winner with that being said too. What will happen this time in Imola? Will anything be different? We'll find out in a few minutes. We'll get loaded in for the event. Will anything be different? Will it be less punctures? Will it be no punctures? Will we have the same amount of punctures? Will we have a wet race again? Will we have a completely dry weekend? Time to find out. I'm your commentator for the event, Ryan Searles. It is good to have you all here, wherever and whenever you may be watching this event. So happy to be back for RPL F2. For the last event before halfway of the season, Season 20 of F2. Very historic to say the least. Last week's race, we were at Miami, and lap 1 was a bit chaotic, I think, in both events. We had a collision down at the end of Sector 1. We had a collision down at the end of Sector 2 in both events. But it was a brand new car that we were racing with. So I can't really put too much blame on the drivers. They're still learning that. So we're going to give them some little bit of lenience in terms of that. But either way, Jack Miles won both the sprint and the feature last week to take over the championship lead over Josh, who has dropped down to a reserve role, which is really unfortunate to see. Josh, one of the better drivers in F2, no longer full-time. Hate to see that. Hope everything's okay for Josh. But in terms of this weekend so far, we've had 2 winners in Tier 3 and Tier 2. Yesterday, George won for McLaren. Tier 3, Turbo won for the McLaren team with a first career win in Spa. Speaking of previous similar races, we had Wavy Knife almost win here once back quite a while ago. He would love to have a good race tonight. He's not had a podium in quite a few seasons in RPL F2. Imola is actually one of the only tracks that Luke Grange, our owner and all-time F2 winner, has never won at. So now, we tend to wonder, will anybody who's never won here in Imola before win tonight? That'll be a big question. We have some returning drivers and some headlines to go over before we talk about our championship standings. We have Minico full-time now in the Invicta. He is now TTRE Minico, whatever the hell that means. Typical G had his contract terminated just recently, reserve contract for inactivity. JTK, AMS JTK, is now racing for ART. He was racing full-time at the start of the last F2 season, but didn't finish out the season. That was due to, I think, the way he felt with the cars and wanted to focus on F1. Totally understand that, but he's back full-time this time with Kipu's Academy for ART. Josh, part of Kipu's Academy, drops to reserve. Here's a few other drivers who have been signed as reserves for F2. We have Ardell, he's not here. Josh H, different Josh, he's not here. But Zora, the other Canadian, is here. We speak about our Canadian drivers quite a bit in RPL. We have Minico got a podium last week. Ardell got his first last week in Tier 3. And they've really started to see some success here. And maybe, just maybe, if Zora doesn't cause any sort of issues and actually has a clean race. He had a decent race actually in Tier 3, to be fair. He wasn't fast at all, but he was clean as far as I know. It's different for him. I got to give him credit. He wasn't here. He wasn't when he was here before. So he's definitely trying to be a better driver this time around, and you can already see it happening. You just got to keep it that way. If he's able to have clean races and start up front in a sprint race and hold on at a track that's hard to overtake, which we do have some of those coming up, maybe, just maybe, he can get a first podium in RPL. Blue Gagi is here, and he will get into his seat for the 14th and final spot before qualifying. And our only other headline we have that I know of from seat changes is Invade, a part of J&T's academy at the Young Red Bull Academy, drops down to a reserve role. 10 seconds to go before we get started for the event. Jordan has a race ban for this event. He had an incident with Bulgogi last week and caused some issues there. It was on the opening lap, heading to the pit lane, he swiped into Gagi on purpose. That will do you no good. He got a race ban for it. And SV had an incident in Tier 3 that got him a weekend ban. So keep an eye out on him when he returns next week because he will have a qualifying ban to serve. So we are getting ready for one-shot qualifying for RPL F2. Welcome along, Twitch chat. Very glad to have you. Let's talk about who you guys think will get pole position. So far this season in RPL F2, here have been our pole sitters. We have had 4 different qualifying events, and in fact, we've only had 1 repeat pole sitter. Cookie was on pole last week, Night Owl the previous week, 2 brand new pole sitters in RPL F2, and the 2 weeks before that, we had Josh for ART get onto pole position and get his 2nd and 3rd poles all time in RPL F2. We'll see if we have any rain for the end of the events at all. We'll look at the Twitch chat in just a moment, but give us your final predictions for qualifying. Just a reminder, into this event, Jack Miles leads the championship by 31 points over Josh and Metal. Both drivers are not here tonight. That is crucial for Jack to extend the championship lead. So our second qualifying session is getting underway now with the brand new F2 2024 cars. And one of the big things we'll be talking about in terms of this event that we did not mention for our headlines is track limits. Let's watch Valkyrie down here into the first chicane. Does anybody get invalidated for track limits? That'll be a big question because this track is very punishing for those track limits. Now we go to Villeneuve and down toward Tosa at turn 7 now. Bulgogi, George Up Williams, Zora, they're at the back of the field. Maybe invalidating, maybe just having poor laps. Zora has retired from the session, but we now go to the front of the field with a driver who has been out for a few weeks in RPL F2, just not having the availability to race. Skither, he is leading the pack, and he said, watch this championship hunt that he is about to do. He is 51 points behind Jack Miles, who was his teammate last season at RPL F2. And Skither, if he can achieve pole position tonight, he is looking to achieve pole number 16, and he would only be 2 poles off of Luke Range, the all-time pole sitter. JTK is looking for his all-time, his best F2 qualifying effort, which he could very well do, being just right there, flirting with the front row, but off of the final corner for the final time. 1 dip here, Skither to the line, takes pole position over Jack Miles by 4/10 to earn his 16th pole in RPL F2. And yet again, in another season, Skither is on the pole. It's his 7th different season. Let's give you a rundown through the order here. So, behind Skither, previous teammate Jack Miles, JTK starts in the best spot he's ever started in RPL F2. Minico is 4th. And Eric rounds out our top 5. So, our sprint race top 5 follows with this. Optical on the pole. Midfield Maestro, 2nd place. Believe it's his debut. Cheese, Wavy, and Night Owl are top 5. Some guys who could take very big advantage there on the sprint race top 5. And front row as well. At the back of the field, invalidating Bulgogi, George Up Williams, Valkyrie, and Zora. So, time for the event. Looks like we have a dry sprint race. Remember, last time was this feature race that ended up just pouring it down. Raining cats and dogs. You have 20 seconds until the race start here. I'm going to check the Twitch chat quickly. I have not been doing that. Hello, Invade. Hope you're rooting on your drivers. So, round number 5 of the season is about to get underway. Give us your predictions in the Twitch chat. Let us know what you think will happen. We're about to start for lights out in the sprint race right now. Here we go. The 5 red lights are coming on for the sprint race in Imola. Away we go. Off the line. The dams of midfield Maestro was absolutely sideways right there. Wheels spinning there. Look who's got a great start. It's Wavy Knife who's up the order. And look at behind that. It's a complete gaggle. 3 wide here down to the turn 2, the first braking zone. Do we avoid the trouble we usually have? The Trident of Bulgogi there almost went off and careering into another car, but Optical still leads this race, then it's midfield, then Wavy, Eric, and Cheese round out our top 5. JTK is trying to gain spots with Minico. A little bit of contact back there, and there's more contact at the back of the field. We have cars going spinning. Bulgogi is off, and more importantly, very off is Zora. Zora at the back of the field getting caught out majorly, but Night Owl trying to go on Cheese here into turn 8. It's not going to happen. Wavy Knife now is gaining places. He's up to 2nd. So whatever happened to Midfield Maestro, it looks like he's lagged out. He has lost many places from the start of this event. Our positions gained. We have Eric having the most inside the top 9, but now we've got spinners. We have Cheese around in the Alpine livery car. He is struggling to get back going, and we have also more trouble. That is Minico down the grid. Bulgogi just got tagged from the rear. He is spinning around. We have so much going on in this opening lap, and we forgot to mention Georgia Williams has gained 6 places. Our first of those guys who started up in the top 5 in the qualifying order was JTK, who's struggling with the rear, as you can see. But behind the lead, the gap is 3.1, so him and Skither will have to gain that gap down. Optical does lead lap 1, though. A lot of movement. Here we go, down to turn 2, the first braking zone. JTK, a sitting duck here to Skither, and Jack to the inside. Both of them go. JTK holds it in, bangs wheels with Jack. I don't think Jack would have liked that too much. But JTK around the outside does hang on to position with Jack, and Jack on that left end plate does have damage. George around the outside, a little deep into the corner, did get through momentarily, but Jack repasses him for 7th place. Jack Miles, big lock up into the braking zone there. Down here at turn 7, Tosa corner. But now, midfield Maestro, who lagged out of the session, is going to get an invite back soon. Valkyrie has passed him for position. Our top 4 is in a DRS train, but Skither's coming. He's coming quick. He needs to do everything he can with this to pass these guys and make sure they know they're not up here for long. 2 DRS trains pretty much. 5th on back and 1st to 4th with what we have right now currently. And that's a spin from our lead. That is Optical. He has gone around in the Trident. That is troubling Optical, who had a great chance to take advantage of a poor qualifying with the sprint race pole now down the order. He's down to 10th, and that now means everybody up here has DRS. When we get it enabled, and we will this time, lap 3 begins now. As this lap's being traded all the way throughout the field. Here comes Eric down to turn 2. Do they fight for this lead? No, they don't. If everybody stays in line and just plays it cool, calm, and collected, we very well could see Wavy Knife hold on to this. Wavy Knife has not had a podium since Zandvoort back in season 18. It has been a long time for Wavy. In fact, his only race win in RPL comes back in season 11, but he's now spun out of the lead. That's the 2nd driver to do so. Wavy Knife has just been hit with the commentator's curse. He is around. That is so unfortunate for Wavy, who just lost it looked like on the curb right there. Now, Eric is the one in front, but do you even want to be the one in front this race? Because everybody is spinning out. Oh no, top 4 in DRS having a chance at this, but really, is the lead the place you want to be after what we've seen the last 2 laps so far? JTK and Skither are there on the back of Night Owl to pressurize the front 2 up at the front of the field. Night Owl won back in Canada for the first time on his debut weekend. Eric got a podium back in that race for the first time in RPL F2. Optical now is racing Minico here down at the final couple of corners. This is because those guys spun out in the opening few laps, so now they have company with each other, and we see Zoro. We cut to him spinning around and resetting the track, but momentarily, we now go to our lead. Skither dipping wheels on the grass, trying to go the long way around. You see Eric, who's gone from 1st to 3rd now. He has been hit with absolute a mess right here with Slipstream and that toe. Now Skither pressurizing Night Owl, the Australian, for the lead. Australia versus America right here. Daniel Ricciardo's favorite two countries, in fact. They all went a little wide there at the hairpin, but everything still stays in line right there. Now, look at this. Blue Gaggi leads this battle for 9th place. Midfield Maestro is still being overtaken here. Minico now dispatches him for that place. But Skither has Night Owl right in his sights, right in front of him. Will there be a move here? Down at the end of lap 4. Night Owl hangs on for now. And what does GTK do with this? He can challenge Skither, our leader, but he has to get by Eric first. And he's hitting the back of Eric. Eric goes off track. Eric now trying to survive that hit that he got from JTK. And Wavy Knife has been hit with a penalty, but for the lead on lap 4, down here, locking up. Skither with a big lunge. Does he go for it? Does he keep it? Yes, he does. Skither is now in front and leading this race. However, Skither there got the DRS. Night Owl didn't, but Night Owl with the slipstream, with the draft, is trying to recover that gap and recover the lead. And look at Skither flapping his rear wing right there. Here's Eric with a big boost of momentum. JTK tries to follow him around the outside, down here to the Tamburello chicane. Eric gets 2nd place back. Night Owl hangs on to 3rd, and JTK is still 4th, but Jack Miles, who he hit off there earlier on, is now there for company, and we've got a spin. That is Wavy Knife into the Tech Pro once again. This is not good for Wavy Knife. You know who else is not good for? Zora. He reset the track earlier. We caught that on stream. That is against the rules. So hopefully someone caught it on stream. And we got another spin, in fact. That is the Trident. That is Optical, who has gone around. And Valkyrie, who's inside the points, just off that DRS train, has picked up a penalty. That is the first crucial penalty of this race inside that top 10. See a lot of movement around. I think a lot of the drivers who run Racing Line are trying to at least see the braking zone in order to not run in front of the driver in front of them. Right now, Skither leads this race and is looking for another win in RPL F2 and to help his championship gap. We have penalties going to Eric and Blue Gaggi. That is crucial for Eric, who runs 2nd in this race. JTK, who returns to F2 for the first time in the season, is looking for yet a 2nd podium if he can do this. Skither, fastest lap, he's pulled out DRS, but here comes Night Owl for 2nd place. Night Owl has the help of DRS, so does Eric. Night Owl moves around in the braking zone, but cannot make anything of it. Everybody stays in line and stays in the spot they were in just a lap ago, but now JTK is now looking to the inside here at the chicane. This is a tough place to make a move, especially getting caught off like that, but everything is fine. Now, Jack Miles to the hairpin, inside line. He almost pulled a dummy. Now, squeezes JTK just a little bit. Remember, these two had made contact earlier on in this race. Jack Miles truly wants to say, hey, I wasn't happy about that, but I can get this place back. And we've got another spin. That is down there at Tamburello chicane once again. That is Optical and Wavy who've gone around. Whatever's happened there with those two, it's not good because those two run outside the points. And if there was even a chance to get the points, well, now it's done. Jack Miles punting the back of JTK while we saw Minico pick up a penalty. And now, Jack Miles, we usually don't see him pick up one, but he has picked up one. We spoke about how crucial track limits are going to be around here with how penalizing it is from the game. With that being said, Jack Miles going down the inside, trying to make up for the track limits that he ended up picking up, but he just shoves his way through with JTK. Jack Miles is up to 4th, and look at this. Inside our top 6 places, only 4 of those guys are without track limit penalties. We've got another spin. That's Wavy Knife looping it around, but right now, for 2nd place, Night Owl wants it on track rather than the penalties. Night Owl goes through. Here comes JTK back at it. He knows Jack Miles has damage, but if he can just get through on Jack, this would be a good spot to go fight for the podium on track. Eric closing in now for 2nd place on Night Owl. None of these guys have DRS because Skither has pulled that gap. Wavy Knife, 10 seconds, speeding in the pit lane. We've lost our first driver from this race, and it is Wavy Knife. That is not good. He just spun from the lead really and just it went crashing down right there and he never could recover. But now we got movement in the braking zone. Eric almost moved across Jack and that could have been catastrophic. This has allowed JTK to put Jack vulnerable and go down the inside once again. These two will be in top cars later on in the F1 race. I don't think they want to keep banging it out like this right now. Almost a collision. Jack and JTK coming together, and it has happened again. Jack bangs into JTK. Both of these two can't keep off of one another's cars, and in fact, Jack Miles almost lost DRS at the expense of that. And look at George just bump drafting JTK through here. Lugagi has a penalty. Look at JTK just pinching George here, not allowing George to go past whatsoever. George has gone past JTK, but not Jack. Night Owl and Eric, they were racing down the main straight down to turn 2. Everything still stays there quite calm, but the gap with the lead is 3 seconds now. We did have a penalty handed out to one of the drivers just moments ago, but George has been put vulnerable here. Look at him just pinching JTK. They are not racing really with any respect at all with JTK after the banging JTK is done with these guys, and I really say I cannot blame him. George just pinched JTK there into the hairpin down at turn 7 and was not going to allow him to go past without a fight. We have now another retirement from this race. That is Optical, our second DNF. Technically, with George making that move, he's on the net podium. But now, look at this, up in front of George and JTK. Penalties handed out. Night Owl now has a penalty here. We spoke about track limits being a crucial thing. I mean, keeping it on track is a different thing, especially with the drivers who spun out. But they're not keeping it on track in terms of the track limit penalties right now. This is not good. They need to try to pull a gap, and if they don't, well, we'll see what happens. Lap 9. Night Owl tries to repass Eric for the place, and Jack Miles is there with a lot of momentum, a lot of overspeed. Down to turn 2. Jack Miles is ahead and up into 3rd. But remember, Jack Miles, we usually don't see him have a penalty. He does have that penalty at the expense of that, and that is very costly. George right now is on for a podium. Just remember that. Blue Goggy has got a penalty now. And look at this up in front. Jack Miles caught Night Owl napping. A little bit of struggling from the Prema has put Jack Miles on the inside, and we have JTK who has ran off in the grass. Was there contact with George? We know George and Jack have got very argy-bargy with JTK, and JTK's got very argy-bargy with them back. Has that been a part of what JTK went off for? And oh, we had a car running in the back of someone else in front there. Was that Jack running in the back of the Prema, excuse me? That would have been absolutely terrible. Nonetheless, though, George doesn't care about the penalty situation. He's going to take you out another place on track. From starting at the back of the field here with George, he's gained 10 places. Right now, he'd be one of my driver of the day contenders. Very impressive. And after what happened with maybe George and JTK, look who's caught back up to DRS. Almost losing the rear catastrophically there, JTK and Eric in front as well. I was going to say JTK with all this battling has caught back up, but I don't know if he got the DRS. He did, though. So, very good stuff there. But Jack Miles, who has the damage, really doing a great job with that, hindering him. He has passed Night Owl. George has 2. And at the first chicane, we have a car off. That is cheese into the wall, and now going a lap down. Zora is pitted for super softs. It looks like he won't have a fresh set for the feature race coming up, but nonetheless, Skither, George, and JTK, they would be our top 3 as things stand right now when the penalties get applied. And Blue Goggy cannot keep his car on the track. He is now up to 12 seconds of penalties. He is our first driver in double digits of those penalties. That is not good for the Malta driver. But Skither leads this race with a 4.7 second gap, looking for what I believe is win number 34 in RPL F2. And he was talking about getting that championship gap down. That would be great. But right now, behind that, I think Jack will be gaining some points after looking at who just picked up a penalty. That was George Williams, the fellow Welshman. So now JTK could be looking for a second RPL F2 podium as things stand. But the gap right now between him and Jack could make sure he's either on the second or third place step of the podium, depending on what happens here in this battle. 3 laps to go. Who is going to change things here in this battle? JTK sits in the back of this train right now, and I know he wants to get this move done to make sure he stays on the second place of the podium rather than the third, but the way things stand, you've also got to keep yourself out of track limit penalties. With that being said, see in front of that, George has clawed back in of DRS range of Jack Miles, and Cheese, who went a lap down, has picked up a penalty as things stand. Valkyrie also does the same at the end. Saw George F. Williams down at the hairpin go a little bit wide, excuse me, but nonetheless, he's still in this fight for P2 on track. And in fact, if he does overtake Jack, it technically is even playing ground, because that is for the last step on the podium. With JTK not having a penalty, you know, these guys are fighting for third. If he does pick up a penalty, him and Jack are fighting for second here. And there you go. It's happened. JTK has picked up a penalty. Jack and George are fighting for second and third here with that penalty. But remember, with the penalties they have, they can't afford another one either. Night Owl is right there, and he's going to be overtaken by JTK and Eric when this race ends based on the penalty situation. But Skither has really put on a clinic here. Look at this. Ever since he took the lead, he's held on to it. I know Jack and George here are in this DRS train, but there's not been much overtaking since Jack got that gap there. And even then, Skither has pulled out a gap and extended it quite well. 8.4 will be the penalty, well, will be the gap when the penalties do get applied. Excuse me. Behind Valkyrie and Miniko, something's happened there. Miniko has gone off onto the gravel, and he's down in P8. This is not the race we would have expected from Miniko, who got a podium in Miami last week. But JTK is sending it on Eric, hoping to get another place here after losing out due to the penalty. It just will not happen right now. JTK stays in line, and right now the gap between the leaders, 5.4. Skither will get that gap to 8.4 when the penalties are applied. What a commanding drive from the American here. I mean, just imagine if he didn't miss the races he did. He's only had one start this season, and he's been on podium in both of those. Jack Miles with a crucial penalty. That's going to cost him even more. What is going on for Jack Miles to pick up these penalties? Is the damage having an effect on him right now? I would think so. Right now, our last our two places on the podium with Skither would be with Night Owl, or excuse me, George and Eric. Final lap approaches our way now. Blue Goggy picked up another penalty right there in the background. 18 seconds he has, and George wants this place on track. He now has it. George is up to second place, and it looks to be another race where him and Skither are 1-2. Further on back, Miniko repasses Valkyrie for the place. And crucially, JTK, you know he wants to get this place over Eric, because right now, this is for the final podium place. Does he go for a send here at the hairpin? No, he thought of it, but look at this. He looks to do so on the exit of the corner. Eric hangs on. JTK has to settle for what's going to be net P4 here. Lukagi is now up to 21 seconds on the penalty margin. Wow. And Cheese has retired in the pit lane. He is out of this event. I will give Jack a lot of credit. He has held on very well with this damage, to say the least. And Eric has picked up another penalty. Well, JTK will be getting a podium with that being said now. Valkyrie gets a penalty. Seems like whenever this guy shows up for RPL F2, he's winning, and he's doing it for the 34th time. What a clinic by Skither. He wins the sprint race in Imola. To the line, George F. Williams is gonna finish second, and when the penalties get applied, it is JTK who finishes in third in his RPL F2 return. Subject to penalty, made a lot of contact with Jack. I'm interested to see if Jack reports it, but nonetheless, Jack, if he does report it, he could get P3. With that damage, he finishes P4, limiting the damage on his championship hopes here. Night Owl, P5, Eric, P6, Miniko, P7, and our last points runner was the VAR of Valkyrie. Midfield Maestro returned to the session, our last one across the line. But Skither wins for the 34th time and for the 3rd time this season. Very well done. What a dominant performance. The man from Florida, who's had to hear nothing else but these hurricanes the last few weeks. Well, he has definitely put an exclamation mark on this one. Together, and the Dams gets to celebrate on the top step of the podium. Dams win for the 77th time. And he has a reason to throw that trophy right in the air. So our top 3 was made up of 3 different nationalities. America, Wales, Netherlands. In fact, let's take you back to 5 years ago today in RPL history. Our first race, we saw a Dutchman on the podium in RPL F1. We see it happen tonight in RPL F2. With that being said, with JTK, seems like one thing has not changed in RPL. Look at this. 2 drivers ended this race penalty-free. Skither and Midfield Maestro. You know what this is similar to? Canada. It was one of the only other races we saw the penalties be handed out basically to everybody. A 9-second gap Skits won with. Look at that. Skither, George, JTK, Jack, Night Owl, Eric, Miniko, Valkyrie, our top 10 points drivers. Now we go to the feature. Zora, a lap down. Cheese, Optical, Wavy, we lost from this event. Blue Goggy had just a troubling race, just making a fool of himself anytime he wants to talk about himself doing well, and then picks up 24 seconds of penalties. That's not a good look, but that is not good. Goatly mentioning in the Twitch chat so many time penalties. That is correct. Not a good look from some of these drivers who want to have some good things to say about themselves ahead of the feature. And really, for this weekend itself, we have a cloudy event here. Is it going to rain at all? That is going to be the question. I'm going to look at some driver streams. We might have rain, but yes, we do. We have rain in this event. We have rain midway through. It might dry up at the end too. Oh boy. Well, the wet tires are ready for these drivers. 20 seconds. Give us your predictions. This is very, very, very similar to what we saw last season, except it was a full wet race last season, actually. So that's what's different. But right now, we're about to kick things off for the feature race. 5 years on from RPL's first weekend in RPL F2, back in Bahrain. Here come the 5 red lights. Kicking on now. It's time to bring the action for the feature race. Skither, wheel spin off the line. That was detrimental to his start. Jack Miles and JTK both take advantage. Now, down to turn 2. Jack Miles leads this race. Skither tries to recover the lost ground. JTK almost went deep, but now Miniko bangs with Skither. They did this on the opening lap in Spain, and they did it again. Luckily, this time, no collision. Down there at turn 3 and 4, Eric and Zora. Looks like they were trading some paint and losing some places, but a big battle here with Valkyrie, with Blue Goggy, with Zora, who uses the escape road right there. But now, Goggy, who had the penalties earlier on in the sprint, now looks to keep this a cleaner race with now George Williams to his outside. Wheel to wheel here, down to turn 8. Side by side, the long way around from George. Can he hang on? Goggy is pinching him. It's Goggy versus Groggy. Now Groggy on the inside line gets ahead. How about that from George Williams? A very bold, brave move there. Down here to the end of Sector 2. Let's look at the positions gained. It is the biggest winner, once again, going to George, and he's going to get yet another place because Valkyrie's gone really deep. And here's the rain. The rain has started to hit. The question becomes, will it be enough for wet tires? We got a lot of banging here. Down to the final couple of corners. Valkyrie gets shoved out by Blue Goggy. Blue Goggy is not going to give this one up, but Jack Miles leads this race. Miniko is also there to pounce. Miniko, that's his teammate right there who leads this race. JTK sits behind and still stays behind. Egg retires from this race. I guess he wasn't supposed to be in a car. He's banned from F2 if you don't remember that. But with that being said, Miniko is pressurizing JTK to help out Jack, his teammate, right there, who leads this race. And right behind, Blue Goggy, Valkyrie, race wheel to wheel here, down to the Tamburello, Villeneuve chicane, wrong chicane. But nonetheless, Blue Goggy gets 9th place. Let's look at who started on what tires. That will definitely be crucial in terms of, well, not only when the rain came, but also how long it is until they switch tires. And even, will it be enough to switch tires? Will it be raining hard enough to do that? Our biggest loser on the opening lap, by the way, was, well, really anyone from 12th to 14th. Up at the front of the field, it was our pole sitter who really had a Lando Norris type of moment. 1st to 4th from Skither. Blue Goggy, no surprise there. If you saw our sprint race, he was picking up tons of penalties. He picks up our first penalty in the feature race, and he's being pressurized by Valkyrie. Let's look in front where Eric and George are racing it out. George gets Eric, Goggy gets Valkyrie, but Goggy pinches her onto the curb, and you can just see how troubling it is for all these drivers with the rain coming down. Jack Miles leaves yet another lap with DRS enabled. Valkyrie reclaimed P9. Blue Goggy, look at him sliding around. He is not comfortable here. And he's battling up against another driver who's had to clear his name in RPL at one point. That is Zora. Nice little return from Zora to do better in the feature race compared to the sprint. Goggy's not doing that with the penalty situation and with the sliding from him right now. Is it enough for wet tires soon enough here? We'll find out. But Wavy Knife has been passed by George Alp Williams. George, yet again, at the back of the field, just like yesterday and during the sprint, recovering the lost ground, up 8 places. George seems to be doing these recovery drives quite a bit recently, and he's doing a very well job to do that. Also, 2 weeks now in a row it's been in Tier 2 that he ended up coming from the back of the grid and getting the victory. Got a podium in the sprint race coming from the back of the grid. And Eric is our second driver to join Blue Goggy in the penalty club. That is not good. We know the question is, will it be enough for wet tires? But if it's not enough for wet tires, I tend to question who has made the right strategy call and who has not in terms of shutting on super softs compared to mediums. Here comes JTK in the slipstream. He will take the lead of this race over Jack Miles. Miniko also follows suit. Miniko also has damage. Remember that. Miniko up to 2nd. George gets up to 5th. George is really on the charge here. And also, keep in mind, Skither does lead this train 2.3 the gap, by the way. Skither had a horrible start. Is the rain affecting him? Is the rain helping him? We'll find out when we get to, really, the pit stop cycles. But JTK, for the first time, is out in front of an RPL F2 race. Not talked a lot about him in F2 because he really doesn't even do F2. He was focused on Tier 2 and even F1 for the longest time. But right now, he's leading over the Canadian of Miniko, who's won here once, won here at this track last season. Jack Miles, who has done a great job so far this weekend. But our leader picked up a penalty. JTK. That is very, very detrimental for the lead. Also a spin. That is Eric, who's went into the Tech Pro and it's brought out a VSC. So Miniko also just picked up a penalty right now in that top 2. Will not be our net leader any longer. It'll be Jack Miles. I was talking about Jack Miles doing well. He had very great pace with the damage he had. Now Miniko will have to do the same, but also in Jack Miles' case in the sprint with a penalty. Does anybody pit into this VSC? JTK is in, but for what compound of tire is he going to? Is this too early? I think this is the wrong call. I really do. I think this is the wrong call. He is pitting for wets. Is this too early, or is this the right time for the Dutchman? Blue Goggy is in. Zora is in. Eric, Zora's teammate, is in. The thing for Blue Goggy is, I don't trust him pitting at all either, because last week in Miami, he made a strategy call when it was a dry track. Well, it was a not wet track, but it was raining, and it was, you know, dry tires. He made the call for wet tires, and when it really costed him in the end because he change back onto dry tires, and it just didn't work out in the sprint race in Miami last week. But nonetheless, we're back to green. VSC's over, and we have a drive-through penalty for Cheese, who runs inside the points. That is not good to see. That's very unfortunate for the Cheeseman. Well, maybe it was the right call. Because look at this. The track is getting extremely wet. But we know it's supposed to dry up a little bit at the end of the feature race. Will it be enough? Will it be long enough to stay on the wet tires for these guys who did come into the pits? Look at JTK's gap to Optical here. 15.5. Is the gap coming down? Not really. No, not at all. It's not coming down. But our leader of Minico is in. This is very interesting. Here comes Wavy as well to join him. Cheese will come into the pits, but obviously he has the drive-through, so is he pitting for a new set of tires, or is he pitting to serve that penalty? Night Owl, we've not talked a lot about him. He has re-overtaken George App Williams for third place, and look at George with the grip on this track. He is struggling massively. Minico stayed out the extra lap, and JTK pitted under the VSC. Does JTK overtake Minico here as they come down the main straight? Obviously, Minico will have to warm up those tires. JTK is ahead of Minico as Minico exits the pits now. That's a big gap. If Jack and them pit for the wet tires and this was the right call, JTK might be able to extend his gap over Jack Miles. If this was the right call, this will be big for JTK, who could be winning his first race. We've seen first-time winners happen here in Imola before with Minico last season. We'll see if it happens again. Jack Miles and Skither are seriously struggling out in front of the lead of this race. Look at that. Valkyrie, 3 second. She encounters a penalty. Look at this, just no grip for Skither or Jack. 19.8 JTK has to midfield Maestro. We'll switch back to that in a moment. Skither looks to take the lead of this race before they pit, and he will stay behind Jack Miles. 19.8 now the gap between JTK and midfield Maestro. I think it's right on the crossover point, but I just don't know. Do these guys pit? Do they not? Jack is in, Skither stays out. This is interesting because we know it's supposed to dry up at the end of this, but does it dry up enough for these guys to risk staying out? George, Valkyrie, they all join Jack in the pits. Skither leads this race. And remember, Skither is on the medium tires. He's just struggling out there. I don't know if this was the right call or not. Night Owl, he's gaining on Skither, but does it even matter? Had Jack had a good enough in-lap here to beat out JTK, Jack will be exiting the pits very soon. JTK, here he comes in the main straight to take the lead, a net lead, excuse me, of this race. Does Jack Miles come out in front of Minico? Jack exits now. Minico is ahead. Wow. So Jack doesn't have any penalties. George doesn't have any penalties. This is big. JTK may have just helped himself pitting under that VSC. Remember, back in the old days of F2, you used to not be able to pit under the VSC at all. Cheese is in to go to the wet tires. Remember, just moments ago, he served that drive-through penalty. At the back of this field, Optical is racing Zora for P11. Lugagi is racing a good old friend of his, Wavy Knife. Let's see the grip on this track with these two. Yeah, they're doing a lot better than I'm sure the medium compound tire guys are. None of them are pitting, though. I don't blame them. They have the track position here. And look at the gap between JTK and Skither. 30 seconds. And remember, JTK has a penalty at the expense of it. Skither did not get a penalty in the sprint. JTK did. DRS is disabled. This is the chance you have to go and pit if you haven't pitted already. But with the 30-second gap Skither has and the chance of things drying out at the end of this race, I don't blame him pulling this at all. But is it going to cost him in the long run, or is it not? We have penalties being handed out all over the place. Wavy Knife is the most recent one to pick up one. Battle for P8. Rains on into turn 2, the first braking zone. Wavy Knife has the place. Blue Goggy and Valkyrie, they both want it. And you can see how troubling these conditions are. Look at Wavy Knife right there. Look at Goggy down at turn 3. None of them are taking advantage of this enough, at least. Optical gets Zora. JTK is closing that gap down on midfield Maestro, but is it enough? It's a 16.5 gap with what is an 18-second gap, but his gap to Skither, 30.3 seconds. I know DRS recently got disabled, but Skither has got some great pace here on this track that keeps getting more wetter. I don't even think that's a word. It's just pissing it down. That's the best way I can put it. Skither is in, Night Owl's in. They realize that this is not going to work out, and they're just struggling. It's a lost cause. Does midfield Maestro pit? He stays out. Wow. So nobody, except for him, was willing to go with this, of staying out and just pulling off a gamble. But the Turkish driver leads this race. Skither pits for wets, Night Owl pits for wets. JTK is on the main straight now. And as Night Owl and Skither boxed, where do they come out? JTK will take over the lead of this race. Or the net lead, excuse me. Remember, midfield Maestro has not pitted. Mineko comes out in front of Skither. Jack does. And George will be behind Skither. Interesting. Skither didn't lose as much as I thought he would, honestly. Remember, Jack Miles does not have the penalty. Mineko and Jack do. Yellow flags, that is further on back. That it was for Zora War. 101. Blue Goggy has been overtaken by Valkyrie, who intercepts the place for 9th. Blue Goggy, how many penalties does he have? He has 3 seconds. Much better this time in the feature compared to the sprint. I'm sure the wet track conditions has helped his case. Remember, midfield Maestro leads this race. The net gap is 13 seconds. Does he pit? Does he continue to stay out? He's struggling, but this is worth the call if it really is gonna end up being dry at the end of this. But right now, it doesn't look like it's gonna be dry at any point soon. 7.5 is that gap. Mineko has got yet another penalty. He's up to 6 seconds here. And look at that. Skither would get him right there. Night Owl also picks up a penalty. We've got 5 drivers being penalty-free right now in this race, and our race leader is in. Midfield Maestro pits. JTK takes over the lead of this race. Look at that. And his return to F2 in RPL. Only a second start as well. For the longest time, he focused on the F1 side of things with Tier 2. And right now, he's just trying to take it cautiously. You could just see that. But if Jack does get to Mineko, does Mineko let his teammate by? Remember, Invicta lead the constructors heading into this event over ART. Ironically enough, we have an ART out in front. Midfield Maestro really costed himself there. He comes out in 11th. I don't know if he could have stayed out any longer, but chance it while you can, right? I don't know. It was just, I thought it was the wrong call from JTK, but he actually timed it perfect. I didn't think the track would get as wet as it did very quickly. Or, well, yeah, yeah. I didn't think it'd be wet as wet as it is this quickly. That's the big thing. But JTK chanced it, took advantage. 3.3 the gap. Jack is reeling him. Well, yeah, he is reeling him in. He's also reeling Mineko in too. 1.1 that gap. 0.6 George is behind Skither. These two finished 1-2 in the sprint. Right now running 4th and 5th on track. And really, this is going to become 3rd and 4th here when Mineko's penalties get applied. Eric gets Zora for the last spot on track here. Blue Goggy has got a 3-second for corner cutting. He absolutely made a mess of that chicane there. But 3.4 is the gap. JTK leads this event. And like I was saying earlier, 5 years ago we ran our first RPL F2 race in Bahrain with the feature and sprint. We had the Chiller and HX4K win that event. Not sure if we had any Dutchmen on the podium, but we did for F1, so we'll see if we have it for F2. Wavy right now tries to hold on to 7th place over Valkyrie, who's on the attack and pressurizing. Here comes Valkyrie just bump drafting the Rodin down to turn 2. Valkyrie not pulling out and passing, but Wavy holds on to the place for 7th right now. Wavy's had some great races here in Imola before. He had a Tier 2 podium to his name a while ago. George right now, right behind Skither for 4th. Jack Miles, I know there's no DRS enabled, but he is in striking distance of Minico. Why is this important? Well, he's closing that gap down on JTK. 4.0 is that gap. And with that penalty both of the top two has, I mean, Jack Miles would want to get past Minico quickly enough. We've had many different winners in RPL F2, but if we can get another one tonight, that would definitely add to the list of first-time winners that we've had in recent seasons. I think our return to RPL F2, you would think our champions would be winning out as much as they have, and they have, but we've had some first-time winners get added in quite a bit, to say the least. And right now, 2.8 is the gap between JTK and Minico, but the gap is really not coming down too much between Jack and JTK anymore. Zora picks up a penalty, and right now for 5th place, George has lost touch to Skither. I was about to say DRS. We don't have it enabled, actually, but Night Owl is right on the back of George. With that being said, Valkyrie, does she go for the move on Wavy this time? Yes, she does. She's not staying behind much longer, realizing she's probably losing a bit of time. Side by side down at the chicane. I think she tries to give Wavy room, but pushed him onto the curb and almost a collision right there. But Valkyrie does make the move there for 7th place. Last season in Imola, we had a first-time RPL winner and a first-time F2 winner, but right now we're looking at a first-time F2 winner only. JTK is a Tier 2 champion. He is the Tier 2 champion of Season 13. He is a 9-time winner, I believe, in that tier. He's really had it all go his way in Tier 2. It was really this point in the year, September, October, when JTK started to turn things around last year in RPL as a whole in Tier 2. He picked up his first podium in Monza. He only joined the league back in Season 7, Season 8 of Tier 2. I think he made maybe one F2 start. Could be wrong, but he's not made many F2 starts to his name. And must be said for JTK's case that, yeah, it was this point of the season in Tier 2, well, in Tier 2, at least. This point of the year, at least, it was that things turned around. First podium. Starting to challenge for more podiums, in fact. After that, got one in Spain, just being second to Florian Fenzelter. And then the next season after that, he finally got his first pole. Finally got his first win. And in fact, it came at this racetrack. Is the same going to happen? That will be the question. He's just got 5-6 more laps to hang on with the penalty he has right now to spare. He cannot pick up a track limit penalty. I'm sure he's trying to play it up easy. And I'm sure Jack Miles is trying to do the same too, to not pick up one, especially considering he picked up one in the sprint. He actually picked up 2, in fact, in the sprint. Remember, everybody is on wet tires. JTK and Goggy, they pitted for wet tires early on. They just have to avoid a puncture, though, because we saw a lot of punctures hit the drivers at the end of the race here last season in the feature, but the gap right now between Jack and JTK seems to be staying consistent. Minico, though, is reeling down JTK, but here's why he was exceeding track limits. He's now got 9 seconds of penalties to his name. Down the inside, Night Owl is really pushing the issue with George, and both of them encounter track limit penalties due to that. Night Owl goes off into the grass as well while trying to make the overtake, but he got really aggressive when trying to pass George, and that could have ended very badly. Valkyrie picks up a 3-second penalty. Here is Skither on the back of Jack. Is he going to go for the move? He tried to pull right, pull the dummy to the inside, left hand side, and he makes the move down at turn 2. Jack, is he going to fight this sideways right there? This could be the difference later on in the championships for the season. If Skither gets this place and holds on to it, he has held on to it, but a lot of battling going on here down to the chicanes. George gets Night Owl. side by side. Night Owl really pushing the issue, shoving George out. Optical gets a penalty at the expense of that. Further behind while this battling's going on. And George, you can see he's not happy. He's shoving Night Owl right onto the curb, pinching him, saying, look, you shoved me out. I'm going to do the same to you, giving you basically no room. And Night Owl lost traction right there and almost spun out. He was lucky enough not to. Skither taking over third place. This is the first place without any penalties. 4.1 is the gap. This is probably the worst case scenario for JTK. I hate lagging out of the party. I really do. I don't know why that keeps happening when we all commentate alone. It's very annoying. But anyways, Skither, passing Jack, has got that gap down. It is 3.6, 3.5. He is really closing in on those fresher tires. Remember, he pitted latest of really anybody up at the front of this field. 3.3 the gap. That's all he's going to need here in order to get to JTK. Does Skither have any track limit warnings? That is my question. Skither has really kept it clean. Look at this. No warnings. JTK, does he have a chance to pick up a 6-second here? Maybe. And Skither's already got that gap down. It's just a lost cause here for JTK. He might be holding on for a second podium, but if Skither continues to fight at this, it's not going to happen for JTK. 2.5. Look at this. He might be passing Minico in no time here. What a recovery. Staying out on the wrong strategy. Minico, remember, he has damage to his car. That may be why he's got more penalties than he usually has. We don't usually see Minico pick up so many track limit penalties, but he's really done that. Probably because of the damage, but the damage is already done with the 9 seconds of penalties. It's just going worse. And the pace Skither has right now is incredible. I'm interested to see how much does Minico fight this. Remember, on the F1 side, Minico and JTK are teammates at the same academy at Ferrari. Does Minico fight this with Skither? And if he does, how aggressively does he fight it? And how much longer does he hang on for? 3 laps to go this time. JTK is coming up to a lap car. There will be no DRS here, but you could just see the rain did not calm down whatsoever. That last patch was really non-existent of there being no rain at all, from what we saw on the driver screens. 1.1 the gap is between JTK and Minico. Minico has really reeled in the Dutchman. Skither has really reeled in Minico. But if Skither takes a while to get by Minico, that will be very interesting in terms of this penalty gap, because that may make the difference. I'm sure Skither will go for it now with the damage Minico has. He's going to look. Minico protects. And Minico, how much longer is he going to hang on? He goes very defensive. Look at the gap. 1.2, 1.3. The more defensive Minico goes, the bigger of a gap JTK can maybe get. But it's really inevitable for Skither to overtake Minico here. .3 is that gap between Minico and JTK. The gap between Skither and JTK with the penalties or without the penalties, 1.4. When the penalties get applied and handed out at the end, Skither is winning this race. But you just see JTK not really have the grip the last few laps on those tires, and it's really costing him. For what would have been a first victory tonight, we would have had a 80th different F2 winner, but it still is not over. Skither's got the gap down. And for all we know, these two could collide. They have before happened in Spain, but I just don't see that happening. 2 laps to go. JTK is out in front, but has the penalty. Minico is second. Skither is third, and will have the net lead, but he wants to get Minico. Therefore, he does not have to worry about anything else. Here he comes to the inside. Has a lot of overspeed, and it's just inevitable. Skither, with the lunge, takes over second place in this race. Minico tries to fight it, but he can't. He has to back out of that one before causing a collision. Now, can Skither win this race on track? That will be the question. Or does JTK force him into a penalty? We did see Skither have no penalties prior or warnings, And it still is the case. Skither is keeping it penalty free. And that is a lap car who was spun around right in front of our leader. That is Zora facing the wrong way and coming right in front of oncoming traffic. But Valkyrie, while that happened, now gets into the double digits on penalties. JTK, you can just see he's really struggling. I got a feel for him because he pulled off the right strategy. Skither pitted so late and cost himself for sure. But now, with the tires wearing down, it kind of is JTK's fault that he pitted early if you think about it. But it was his only chance to get this race lead and have a chance at the victory. And look at this. That chance for the victory is slipping away. 0.4. Zora gets another track limit penalty. We're going on to our final lap here in Imola. And we already know Skither will win this race based on the penalties, but he wants to take this on track. Here he comes. Ooh, he hits the back of the Dutchman. And I know JTK will not give this up without a fight. Down to turn 2. Side by side. We have a spin further back, but Skither has gone up and taken the lead of the race. Once again, Blugagi gets a penalty. Will JTK even hold on for second place right now? Look at this. Jack Miles has got the gap down. Look at that. Jack is close. Maybe he's had a late race charge here on those tires. And Zora is out of this race. That is unfortunate for him. Keep in mind, 5 years ago in F1 to this date, it was an American who won in F2, or not, excuse me, F2, F1. Tyler Fish was our first ever winner. We're going to see an American sweep the weekend here in RPL F2. Great stuff from Skither, once again. 0.3 Minico is away from JTK, and Jack is going to get second place and limit the damage here in the championship, but Skither talked about wanting to put this title race back on. Watch this return to the title. He was 51 points behind coming into this event, and right now, picking up 2 victories is going to help his case here. Earlier on, he was on the wrong strategy, and he's recovered beautifully, driving through the field for what is the 35th time in RPL F2. Skither sees the flag first, winning in Imola. JTK crosses second, but that becomes third place with his penalty. Jack Miles, the championship leader, limits the damage to Skither, picking up a second place spot on the podium. JTK gets yet another podium here in RPL F2. Third place for him. George is fourth. Not bad from him. Minico, who had the penalties, was on the podium on track, but finished back in 5th when they got applied. Night Owl was 6th. Wavy was 7th. Valkyrie 8th. Blugagi has not had quite the day. He is down to 9th. And Midfield Maestro is going to take 9th over Blugagi at the end there. And that will mean Blugagi is our last points finisher. I don't know about driver of the day, but I would have to say Skither, a really good contender. George, another one too from both races, honestly. It would be my 2, as Eric crosses the line last, and is our last finisher across the line. Looks like if Skither continues to show up to all these events, the championship fight is on. I have to give a lot of credit to Skither. I really do. Great overtaker. Great overtaker he is. Look at what this guy's been able to achieve here in RPL as the champagne gets sprayed on the top step and the second and third steps of the podium. Look at what this guy has been able to achieve. I mean, just think about it. The wins across all tiers here, that was win 65 across all tiers. That's only like 30 away from Luke, who's been here for the longest time. Look at that. 38 points from Skither. Jack, only 24. I mean, that's 14 points gained throughout the weekend, meaning the gap is down to 37 points between him and Skither. Here are your final results. Skither, Jack, JTK, George, Minico, Night Owl, Wavy, Valkyrie, Midfield Maestro, and Blue Goggy round out our points. And both races, Skither and Midfield Maestro, kept it penalty-free. Bravo to both of those drivers. It's not easy to keep penalty-free around Imola, especially considering how broken the track limits are around here compared to most circuits. Usually you'd have some lenience with that white line, but this circuit is one of those that you don't. So, let's recap you, just like we did for Tier 2 yesterday, where we are for the rest of the weekend and where we are next week. We are at Singapore later on tonight for RPL F1. Next week we're at Zandvoort for Tier 3, Japan for Tier 2, and RPL is back at China for next week. And we'll be racing around Shanghai. Can't wait for that one. That will be a fun one. We've not raced at China in 2 seasons. But last time we did race there was back in Season 18, and the start did get a little chaotic down at turn 2 and 3, the snail section. A little collision I had there with Beatnik and Blue Goggy. And in fact, for Blue Goggy, it was a very happy day for him because he got his first podium that day. Choco also got his first win that day too. So maybe we'll see a first-time winner again, but we almost did today. It was JTK who could have done it, and he did not. So unfortunate there, but find out later today in F1 at Singapore what happens for the event. We'll see what happens then. If you don't tune in then, make sure you tune in next week for our races. For F2's case, we'll be at China next week for round number 6. Our second half of the season will begin then. Alright, folks. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles, signing off. It was good to have you. Good to see you. Hope you enjoyed. Catch us for F1 in Singapore and F2 in China. Until next time, have a good one. We'll see you then.